Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to start on the Tubework. We got the front set at full bump. That way the truck's just lower. I don't have to work on a ladder. But also we can kind of keep everything level this way since the truck is now level instead of way up in the air. So front's at full bump, rear's all cleaned up. Let's get some Tubework started. All right, so when I was trying to figure out where to run the main hoop, and I would like to run it from here. This one makes sense to flow with the side tube, but with how this is set up, there's no way to sleeve it or anything because it's kind of notched partially into the tube. So we're gonna cut this off, and then we're gonna do another tube that matches the window curve up into this point, and then we'll come off of there. All right, so that tube is cut out and cleaned up, so let's bend up another one. So on this tube, I notched this side first, and the reason for that is that will just kind of make it easier to get the angle of the bend right. The bend's gonna start there and then angle up with the cab. All right, so when I bend tube, just the way I do it, this line is the start of the die, and then the start of the bend's a little bit past that, so I just account for that in the measurements. And then if I'm doing like a bend that's not centered with the notch, I'll just do a line like this, and I'll line it up centered with this bolt here. Can't really see that, but that's kind of how I figure that out. All right, so that bend gives me where I want it to flow with the window, and it ends right into that tube. So let's notch it in. So I've talked about it a few times, but essentially you draw the line where your tube intersects, and then you want to notch over the tube. And then your cut lines, it's pretty much always just a triangle. Just depends on the angle of where it's meeting the other tube. But when you're cutting it, you're just trying to cut so it disappears at the end of that line. And then clean up the corners and good notch. All right, so that's the notch without cleaning it up, and it still fits really nice. I just like to clean it up, get the corners nice and rounded. All right, so now that tube fits nice into here, but that tube's on the back side, so it's pretty much the same thing. You just figure out how much it needs to notch, just like that. Cut that corner. All right, so for that, you just do the same thing. You just cut it, set it in there, and then cut it like you would a normal notch, and it'll round it out. And now it fits nicely. All right, got them both done. This one actually needed a little bit more bend than the other side because this tube is closer in and this tube's a little farther out, but they look pretty similar now. Matches the window and gives me a node point to start off of for the bed height. All right, so now with these tubes in, let's clean this up real quick and start figuring out the main hoop. Then we'll figure out the lower frame rails and tie all that together, and then we'll have to work in these coilover mounts. I'm not exactly sure how I want to do that yet. If I have to, I'll redo them, but I'd like to try to leave them. We'll see. Got the main tube bent up and tacked in. So let's get some frame rails built out and support this. Alright, so we got the main hoop all tacked in and the lower frame rails tacked in and set with one side down here. Just gonna build this other side real quick and then we can figure out the down bars. got all the tube work all cleaned up. So we're going to weld this out real quick, and that way we can start setting up bump stops and then mount the coilovers back in and finish a couple little support tubes, but having this welded up will make it nice and rigid so I can get some bump stops set. With the Backhalf all done, threw it down on the scales, reweighed it, just over 4,200. Just a classic box thing. Alright, just a real quick walkthrough of what we did. We cut up the back half, we changed this tube to flow in, and then we back halved everything. We put a smaller fuel cell in it, so it's a 20 gallon now instead of a almost 40. I think it was like a 35 or 38. And then rebuilt the bump stop, same position they were before. Threw together a quick rear panel, storage setup, and then up top we have an air compressor set up and the battery. We also threw a harness bar in, and we're having a little bit of clearance issues, so we made a new track bar for it, moved the lights, made everything clear for the 42s. Thing might need a little bit lighter spring rates, but that completes the back half. Thanks for watching.